Decision making for developers. Let's get right into it. What does this number mean to you? This sounds like a lot, right? So yeah, 35,000 decisions made on average per day. I want to start with the preconditions. What do we need to be a good decision maker? Now, I think a few of them are pretty obvious. Having enough sleep, I think, is the first and foremost that we should do. Can we all just to this picture? It's so cute. Okay, so the first thing we need to make sure that we're well rested. Now, the next thing, which is also really easy to influence, is being in a good mood, right? Choose to be happy. It helps to put you into a good mood, to not be stressed, to not have other thoughts lingering in your mind, have emotions be annoying in whatever sense. So you want to be in a good mood. Now, something that's closer to us as developers is tasks. I mean, we love tasks, right? We love them. If you're ever feeling like you're in the midst of chaos, which I often feel is the case, what helps me most is making sure I'm well organized. Because oftentimes we do a lot more things than just the ticket that we have assigned to us. Doing that will give you a greater sense of just clarity, being calm, having your mind at peace, which is a really good precondition for good decision making. Now, one tip I'd like to give you is to do this at the end of your day. So do this at the end of your day for the next day. When the next day starts, you don't have to think about, what am I going to do today? Have you ever had the feeling where you arrive at your destination, you're like, all right, I arrived, and you stop the car and you're like, how did I get here? I have no idea how I drove here. I have no recollection of this. I'm holding the steering wheel, so I must have been driving. And you're sort of afraid to look back at flipped cars and mass destruction because you don't actually know what you did. It's called highway hypnosis, which is where you're so sort of in your own fantasy land and just dreaming about things, thinking about the dentist, I hope that's a dentist, basketball or whatever, and you're so caught up in this, you're not actually paying attention to what you're doing. So your system 2 is your fast and intuitive brain. It's the part where your emotions live. It's what's automatic. You don't really need any mental effort to be able to operate in system 1. Your system 2 is your slow and conscious brain. This is where your logical reasoning is. This is where if you start to make bigger decisions, your system 2 is gonna act up. Now, your system 2 is constantly checking suggestions from system 1. System 1 is like, all right, I think I should do this. And system 2 is gonna be like, is that a good idea? Okay, that's a good idea. Let's do that. So we start with 7 steps to effective decision making. Step number 1, identify the decision. Should I use Hatos? Should I refactor this code, or should I, whatever the decision is, identify it properly. Then you gather the relevant information. What systems communicate with this component? When was this component written? How often is it changed? I don't know, you can grab NPAF complexity, you can grab all these different things, but grab as much information that you deem relevant for your decision. Now identify the alternatives. So go through every option that you have. This could be refactor the code, this could be, I don't know, keep the code as it is, or this could be, still refactoring, but putting it into a microservice. It could be anything, but try to come up with at least 3 alternatives. This forces you to go beyond your first thoughts. This forces you to consider everything. And weigh the evidence. Weigh all the pros and cons and figure out which one comes out on top. Pick the one that comes out on top. Take the action. Review your decision and its consequences, which I think step 7 is something that we rarely really do. We usually make the decision, and then we're like, all right, let's move on. And then later on, you might be like, all right, well, was it really a good decision? I'm not sure. But you don't really formally sort of assess this decision. So try not to forget about step 7. I'm convinced as a lead developer, it's your job not to decide, but to facilitate the decision. Just because lead doesn't mean that you just decide everything and that you direct everyone. It means that you're responsible, and it means you have to make sure the team comes to a good decision. So, takeaways. 1, a healthy state of mind helps you be a better decision maker. Sleep well, be organized, and just be in a good mood. Easy. 2, Experience, training your system 1, means more space for your system 2. Again, this is not easy. This just takes time. You can't really force this. Well, I guess you could be coding every day, but I'm pretty sure most of you already do. But realizing this is incredibly useful, and try and introduce as many automations and as many standards and things that you can just take away all the menial, stupid little decisions that you're making, and so you can actually focus on the bigger ones, the ones that actually matter and have a greater impact. 3, apply the 7 steps to effective decision making. Use this to make sure you're ticking off all the boxes. You're not missing anything. You're not forgetting anything. Go through the 7 steps. It's really easy, quick and simple. You can just start doing it tomorrow. 4, create a decision-making framework within your team. Get a good consensus on what the rules are. Make sure it's clear when something can be escalated or when people can just make the decision themselves. This really helps, especially in larger teams, to create this autonomy and make sure you keep moving on with delivering value, which is actually what you're there to do. 5, document your decisions using ADR. Please start doing this today. Again, very important. You can't do this in retrospect. And 6, analyze previously written code and get better at recognizing those critical moments. Think like a chess player. Try to be there before it becomes a problem.
No, I'm just wondering, do you have any pointers on how to deal with a situation in which you as a team member aren't being involved in the decision making?
Ooh, that's very annoying. Do I have any pointers when you're not being involved? Well, I guess maybe it's a bit cliche, but start the conversation. I guess that's a good place to start. Tell them what sort of effect that has on you, and because I'm pretty sure at some point you're going to be like, well, screw it, I'm just going to go somewhere else. I don't want to work here because no one is actually listening to me, and I don't feel like I'm putting in anything of myself into this piece of code. So I guess that's a pretty good threat in today's market.
Well, thank you for your presentation. You've clearly done your homework, and that's why I want to ask you this question. The most difficult for me about making decisions is the decision which infects me in a negative way.
Ooh.
And I make most of my decisions, I know it's the right thing to do or the right thing to say, but you know it can have a huge negative impact on yourself.
Okay, so I think it's really good to stick to your values, stick to what's important to you, because if you don't do that and if you don't speak up, you're going to become unhappy, and that's a lot worse. You don't want to get into that situation. So it's actually really important to follow your intuition. I think we underestimate how powerful and how knowledgeable our intuition is, and how often it is actually right. So I would definitely encourage you to stick to your intuition. And I would definitely encourage you to ask yourself the question, am I happy if I make this choice, or am I happy if I make that choice? Because ultimately, that's what matters. I think it's a lot more important to stick to your own truth and stick to things that you find important than thinking about what other people think. Okay, so that's the only thing I can give to you as sort of words of encouragement. But yeah, there's no silver bullet in trying to navigate your way through that.